To me, what a smart home is where you have technology and devices that add value to a home.
Okay.
So that you can be better served in your home. If you don't have access to changing your existing deadbolt hardware, let's say you live in a condo or an apartment, something like that, you can have attachments that go on to your existing deadbolt hardware. The way we kind of do it with my company is that we pick the best products for you, and then I'll come in, I'll integrate them and install them for you. This button right here, this is the Eve button. I mean, I can control my entire home via one button.
Hey guys, Darren Marcus with the Darren Marcus Group with Huntington & Ellis. I am here today with my buddy Chris Oram with Oram Home Technologies. Chris, how are you doing?
Well, Darren, how are you?
Good. First thing I want to ask you, man, is there anything you can do from a smart home standpoint to make it less humid and to lower the temperature outside?
Unfortunately not. Nothing to do with the climate, but we can definitely handle your indoor climate with a smart thermostat.
Awesome. Okay, good. We're getting there then. All right, guys. So today what we're going to do is, the reason I brought Chris out is because probably one of the biggest questions I get asked from clients, number one, is it a smart home? That's the most common question. And then number two, if it's not, can we make it a smart home? And you know, and I think that going back, Chris, you and I talked a little bit about it, you know, luxury, especially in the luxury space over the past decade, you know, it could be really expensive. Like if you're using a traditional home automation system, I mean, some of these home automation systems, you're talking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, which is an incredible amount of money.
For sure.
And what I'm finding is with a lot of this latest technology, you can do it much less expensive, right?
For sure. Back a couple decades ago, the minimum to entry was $10,000, but now with things like Ring and Nest, you can just get a quick barrier to entry and just really be in the smart home market very quickly.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit. We're going to start walking. Number one, you know, what is a smart home? Like, tell us, what is a smart home?
Sure. Great question. So to me, what a smart home is where you have technology and devices that add value to a home.
Okay.
So that you can be better served in your home. So I tell people that you should be able to access your home in three main dimensions. So let's use a light switch, for example. So previously you just had an on-off light switch. So that's the first dimension, which is physical touch.
Yep.
The second dimension is going to be access via your smartphone.
Okay.
So you can control it on an app and just turn things on and off. And then the third dimension is going to be voice control.
Okay.
So you can control things. Hey, assistant, turn on the lights.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Very cool.
So guys, I'm going to cheat today. I brought notes. Actually, Chris brought notes, and this is going to help me. So if you're wondering why I'm carrying this, that's why. And it's going to make it much better for you. So let's walk through a little bit. We talked about the three ways to control. So let's talk about first, like some of the things that we could do here on the perimeter. You know, you talked about automating the door, which I just recently did to my garage door, which I love because
Game changer.
I was that crazy person who drove around the neighborhood 6 times to make sure their garage door was closed. Yeah. And then I made my wife crazy too. And we are like so happy now with just that one little added thing. So tell us about that. How does that work?
Sure. So looking at an outside perimeter of a home. So the first thing we'll talk about is security. So not only is security just an alarm system, but you can control things like your garage door, your smart door lock, etc. So you can make your garage door smart where you can see the open close status. You can control it via Siri on your phone. Same thing with your door. So after you have the main security points, you can put on a contact sensor, a door window sensor. So when you open your front door, you can have things happening for you. So let's say you get home after work, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, depending on what time you get home. When you get home, you can have the lights turn on, you can have your curtains closed for the evening, just all sorts of things like that. So
that's
security
awesome.
Is probably one of the first things.
And so one of the things that's going to point out, I think is a great thing too with the garage automation, and a lot of people may not even think about this, but nowadays, you know, everybody's heard about porch pirates and people stealing stuff off their porch, and we see them all on the Ring doorbell, right? But the nice thing is now is if you know that you have a delivery coming, and I think even on the app that I have, if I recall correctly, I can set it up to where I can give access to like the UPS driver or Amazon driver, and they can access my garage. I know it's them because they have a special code, right. And then they can put stuff inside my garage, or I can open it and let them in. And I think that's a really nice feature.
We're at a key point in technology. Like there's crazy possibilities of what can happen.
Yeah. So let's walk up to the front door and let's talk a little bit about, you know, at the front door. I mean, I think everybody is familiar with like the Ring doorbell and that type of stuff. You brought a different one today that you're more familiar with.
So yeah, this is Eufy security. So Eufy is probably the best in class one right now, but any smart doorbell will work for you. Whether it's a Ring, it's a Nest, there's all sorts of different brands. But what I bring with Oram Home Technology is that we use the best products in the class. So we represent whatever product is the best, and not necessarily, we're not just tied to Ring or something like that. So the next dimension we'll talk about is surveillance. So doorbells, first and foremost, must have for any smart home. And you can also do outdoor surveillance through Eufy, as well as indoor surveillance if you have something to watch. So you can even use it as like a baby cam or something like that.
And that's the thing I wanted to point out too. I think is really cool with what you do is that you are an independent consultant. You don't work for any, you're not biased to any one brand.
Correct.
You're going to pick the best of each. And that's what you're going to consult and tell the client, hey, this is going to be the best for your front door. This is going to be the best for your garage or your, lighting system. And so Chris, talk a little bit about, what you do when somebody reaches out to you and they say, Chris, come take a look at my home and tell me how you can make it smarter.
Sure. So at Oram Home Technology, we do three things. So number one, we pick the product. So I'll get on a consultation with a client and we'll talk about kind of what they're looking for, what their expectations are, and we'll pick the right products for them. So we can work with any home, owned, rented, any budget, and we figure out what works for you, what you need to accomplish your goals and what you want to get out of your home. So the next thing we'll do is we'll install the products. We'll get them installed for you. That's one of the harder parts, getting everything mounted, making sure things are working correctly and they're installed. And then the third part.
And it doesn't necessarily always have to be you. If they've got somebody who's installing for them, you could even work with them to consult to make sure that they're selecting all the right products for that person to install, correct?
For sure, for sure.
Okay.
And then the third part, which is where you find the expert, is going to be in terms of the integration. So, if the standard average consumer wanted to, make things work in their smart home, like let's say we're using a motion sensor to control lights. Right. If your wife is cooking and the lights turn off on her because there hasn't been enough motion, that's going to drive her crazy.
Yeah.
So where I come in is that we'll integrate it to your lifestyle and we'll make the smart products actually smart and make sure they're working for your lifestyle.
That's cool. That's one of the things I think is really cool because I have a bunch of home tech, smart home technology stuff on my house.
Yeah.
And I'm just now finally getting it integrated. And for the longest time it wasn't. So I'd have to switch in and out of different apps. And it was honestly, it was more of a hassle than anything.
For sure.
And just even through my alarm app, I've now been able to, my garage door, my Nest, all of that now. So it makes it a lot nicer. So let's head in and we'll talk about, so as we're coming into the house, so you also said that there's things on the door. I know that you'd mentioned. So one, we would change the doorbell.
Yep.
We would make that more of a Ring doorbell or with the camera. And then what are the other things that you would, I know you'd mentioned some stuff as far as on the front door itself.
Sure. So instead of having the standard deadbolt, so depending on if you live in an owned home or a rented home, you can change out the existing hardware for an owned home. So you can have a keypad, you can control it via your phone, you can do fingerprint technology, which is super cool.
Okay.
But if you don't have access to changing your existing deadbolt hardware, let's say you live in a condo or an apartment, something like that, you can have attachments that go on to your existing deadbolt hardware.
Oh, wow. And then that way you can automate, unlock or lock the door from remotely.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, let's head in.
And my favorite technology really is you can get an NFC card. So think like a hotel room, you can just kind of tap in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Very cool.
Awesome. And those are easier to distribute. You don't have to go get a bunch of keys made.
Correct.
And hope that the key works.
Correct.
All right. So now we're entering into the main part of the home. By the way, guys, this is one of our listings, 904 Eaglewood, which thankfully they let us tour today. And so they are currently staging this property, by the way. And so get ready for new photos and everything. It's going to look really good. Chris, let's talk about as we walk into the home. So there's a bunch of different things. Even I want to point out speaker systems, for example, and I don't know if we've touched on this yet, but a lot of the older homes, everything was wired, right? I know some of the newer homes now, they've been able to use different Sonos systems where each speaker is independent.
Right.
And so you could even have different zones and that type of stuff.
For sure.
Give me a little bit of insight as far as like the sound systems and that type of stuff.
Sure. So Sonos is definitely still leading the way in terms of that technology. So speakers can be wireless. So for instance, on this home, they're built into the wall. So people might not necessarily like that aspect of that you have to, make holes in the wall or something like that. So now the state of the smart home is that you can even have speakers behind the wall. So they can get installed and then you drywall over it.
Oh, wow.
And people won't even see that you have speakers. So
Well, that's pretty cool.
saw that, like, my mouth dropped. Like I was mind blown.
And it comes out clear, not muffled. That's pretty cool.
It's crazy.
Awesome. All right, let's head in this way. So we've touched a little bit on security. We've talked a little bit about surveillance as well. Now, as we come into the main part of the home, let's talk a little bit about the smart lighting. What are some of the different things in an existing home that we could do to make the home with smart lighting?
Sure. So if you're living in an owned property, so you own the home, what I recommend for all of my clients is that they have smart switches.
Okay.
So Lutron is the leading smart home brand in terms of smart lighting. So I recommend the light switches because you come into a problem when you use something like a smart LED bulb that if the power is off and there's no energy to the light bulb, it becomes non-responsive. So you can't access your lights if the switch is off. So that's why I always tell people go with smart switches because then you can just access it like a normal light switch.
And is Lutron, those are able to be retrofitted to an existing home and their current light switches?
So you can replace any light switch with it, depending on if you have a neutral wire, there's one version, and if you don't have a neutral wire, there's a different version. But any home can be retrofitted in terms of Lutron smart switches.
Oh, I didn't know that. So I thought Lutron was an entire system that you had to install from the beginning.
No.
I didn't know that it could be retrofitted. So
it absolutely can.
So we're going to talk about some of the different things that Chris brought today that he pulled out of his bag of magic tricks here. And so, Chris, talk a little bit about, obviously there's the indoor camera. We know a lot about that. Tell us about some of the other things that you've got going on here.
Sure. So indoor camera. So this can be great for anywhere indoors. So a main point of entry. You could have a kitchen cam, anything like that.
Okay.
The real big one here is this is the Apple HomePod Mini. So this is a smart speaker. I always tell people they should go with the Apple system, not only because most people have an iPhone, but Apple isn't about getting your data. They're all about privacy, so they want to make sure they're protecting their users. And when we talk about sound and Sonos, things like that, like this is a great speaker and it's only going to become better.
That's good to know. So I'm not going to have like a private conversation with my wife about going to the Bahamas, and then for the next 2 weeks, everything on my phone and TV pops up about the Bahamas, right?
Correct.
Good, okay.
So we talked a little bit about smart lighting. So using something like this motion sensor, which is very inexpensive, you can place this in a kitchen and depending on the time of day, anything you want to customize, you can control. So, Darren, we're both early risers.
Yep.
So we don't want the lights blaring at 100% at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
We'd probably like it more about 50% so that it's dimmable, but we can still see things.
Yeah.
So you can use that using a motion sensor, and when you walk into a room, the lights will turn on. So I don't even turn on the light switches in my house. They just turn on.
That's cool.
Yeah. And same thing, let's say you're getting a midnight snack or something. You can have them turn on to 10%. And so it's just so you can access the fridge and then get back to bed.
And this will help avoid fights with your wife because she won't have to yell at you about not shutting the lights off.
Right. They'll turn off. They'll turn off on their own as well. So you can,
That's awesome.
You can program how like after how long you want them to turn off. So in my home, I do something like 3 minutes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how does that work with the LED lights? Do those work together or?
So it depends. So like I said, we want to go with smart switches wherever possible.
Okay.
But let's say you don't. There's different kind of workarounds where we can control smart bulbs with motion sensors. It's just a bit more complex, but still very doable.
And let me ask you something with these lights. Do they change colors?
They do.
Control the color? Like,
they do.
I've seen that before. There's like a color wheel.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's one of the best parts about the smart bulbs.
And a question on that is nowadays everybody's starting to use different. So some people love the really like bright, clean white look of the lights.
Yeah.
Some people like the warmer yellow.
Yep.
Does this give you both options?
This does it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So warm, cool, whatever you need.
Very cool. Right.
And then just going more into my goodie bag here. So let's say you have an old school lamp. You can plug this into a smart plug, and then you can turn it on and off via the 3 dimensions that I touched on earlier.
Okay.
So you could even do this for a coffee maker if you want to turn on your coffee maker at 5 a.m.
Wow.
Smart plug.
Okay. Very cool.
And then let's talk about curtains, blinds, and shades. So this is the SwitchBot curtain. This is basically a robot device that you can attach to any curtain, so retrofitting.
Yeah.
And then this attaches on, and you can open and close it, as well as set up automations to open and close it.
So does this like roll across the pole?
It does,
oh,
yes.
Okay. I was like, how the hell does that thing work?
Yeah, it's super cool. We'll have to show them an example. But
yeah,
even behind us, we have some Venetian style blinds. We can definitely customize that in a smart home using the Soma Tilt.
Okay.
And then best in class is probably Lutron. They have a sister brand that focuses on shades. So motorized shades like you've seen in some of the nicest hotels.
Wow. And then all of that again can be automated. Can all of those be set up on like a
motion sensor?
A motion sensor?
Absolutely.
Wow. That's
so,
cool.
I mean, the more you get into smart home, the better you can do it to work with your lifestyle.
Yeah. And then one of the things I was going to ask, like, even like with this stuff, can this all be set up on timers? So like, let's say, you know, you're an early riser and you like all the shades and everything to open up in the morning. Can it be set up to where it automatically does that at a certain time?
Yeah. 5 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever you need to.
That's crazy.
I mean, like even let's say you're a 5 a.m. on the weekdays and you're a 7 a.m. on the weekends.
Yep.
You can program it day by day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And these are all, now are these all different apps on your phone?
Good question. Excellent question. So what I try and do is I get it in as few apps as possible. So you can do it with one app, but let's say if you don't want a Wi-Fi security system, you want to have a different one, a hardwired security system, it might have to be 2 apps, but I try and condense it into as few apps as possible.
Okay.
So all of these are different brands, so they'll have you download 10 different apps, but when you have someone come in and integrate it, that's when you can focus it on just one app. So I use the Apple Home app.
Oh, okay. And then that will integrate most of these items.
Yes, and that's where you control your automations, you control the on-off status of all of them, everything.
So I got to say, I think that is such a great thing because I've sold homes over the last couple of years where they've added a lot of home automation pieces to it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are all the separate apps.
Yeah.
And I mean, even myself, like most people look at them like, oh my God, like which one is for which?
Right.
So I think being able to centralize it into one app, I think is really, really important. I didn't even know that Apple had that. So that's pretty cool.
It's installed on your phone right now.
Wow.
We focus on simple.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's the thing that's really important with smart home technology because most people, it's not that simple for, right? And so the more simplified we can make it, the more likely that people will be using it. And I'm even thinking like, as I'm talking to you, you know, one of the things we talked, so let's talk pricing for a minute, because I was even shocked with this. You and I were talking and I said, a house this size, what do you think the cost on average would be to automate it, you know, automate some of the shades and the lighting, that type of stuff. And you were saying somewhere between $2,500 to $3,500.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. So the way we kind of do it with my company is that we pick the best products for you. So I have no affiliation with any of the products. I just want you to have the best in class experience. Mm-hmm. And then I'll come in, I'll integrate them and install them for you. And then just a flat fee, $497. I mean, if you're a friend of Darren, $297, we'll get you going for a smart home. So I really just want to get as many people in the smart home space as possible because I really think it'll benefit them.
I mean, honestly, right now my realtor mind is on and I'm like, I'm always trying to figure out what to buy clients.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a great gift giver, but I will say, like, I think something like this would be really cool. Like, you give people a package of this stuff, and then they can have a consultation with you to set it all up, or they can set it up on their own, or vice versa. We're taking the listing, and to make that listing really impressive, right, is to spend the money just like we would spend on staging the home. Because a lot of my clients, I always tell them, you know, one of the biggest factors in selling a home is the emotional response when a client walks into the property. And so having the wow factor, which is adding all of this technology that you walk in and the lights kick on, the music kicks on, the shades open up, the fireplace is on, all of these things that have been, you know, integrated and automated, I think is a really cool feature to add to a home and to be able to add that consultation to say, hey, look, why don't you meet with Chris? And, you know, he can fully automate the home so that when we show people the property, it's one button, everything's on, and then it gives them that wow factor and makes it really exciting for them. Because I think, in my opinion, this also adds value to a home, right?
It does, absolutely.
Because people see it as time saving, especially for a lot of out-of-state clients. This is a great thing. I mean, I just had a property I showed the other day, and my client's home was set up, smart home, and so he was able to shut off all the lights and close the windows and all that stuff when I left without me having to touch anything. So,
I mean, you really can't put a price on convenience and security.
Yeah. So let me just make sure that we've covered most of the stuff. We talked about shades of light, climate. So I think that's an important factor. We talked about that outside. Let's talk about how that works for inside the home. I know most people are familiar with Nest nowadays. Mm-hmm. Is that what you would typically use? So
in my home, I use Ecobee. Okay. So, I mean, it's the same thing, essentially. So we're controlling the climate in your home. All you really need the smart thermostat for is setting up automations that, let's say, based on your location of your cell phone, and you can set up multiple people within one home. Let's say when everyone leaves home, we'll bring up the AC to 78 degrees just so we can save some money. Yeah. And then let's say when you arrive home, you don't even have to think about your smart thermostat anymore. It'll just go down to your comfort temperature, which could be, 73 degrees. But we can also do it based on time, day of the week, things like that.
I definitely need to have you look at mine because I figured this out last time I went out of town. my wife and I got home and it was 80 degrees in the house because by the time we got close to the home and it started to cool down again, but it knew we were away for a certain period of time. So it adjusted that temperature. I just need to go in the app and obviously adjust things, but it's such a great thing. And I think especially like, you know, I thought it was cool last year during the winter, which a lot of people don't think that it gets that cold here in Vegas, but we were coming home, it was cold. The minute we left the airport, we turned the heater on and heated up the house. And so by the time we got home, it was already warmed up, nice and everything. So I think that's a really great feature to add to the house is the climate control. Is there any other feature with the climate control that you think is important? Or I mean, in my opinion, I was even just thinking, I've got animals at home, and not to cut you off, but I was thinking if my AC goes off, I can see that, right? And I know I have animals at home. So from a safety standpoint as well, I think it's an important factor.
For sure. I mean, it's just really controlling it to whatever fits your lifestyle.
Yeah, awesome. And then we talked about the different accessories. We've touched on why to hire you, right? Save time, save money.
Sure.
You're going to give them unbiased opinion on what the best products are to use. And wrapping up with this, anything that you want to touch on to talk about areas that they can improve the smart home or anything that you want to leave off with?
Sure. So I'll cover couple things. So this button right here, this is the Eve button. I mean, I can control my entire home via one button. So if I want to turn all the lights on, the music, things like you mentioned, show that wow factor, push it once, it happens. And then let's say at the end of the night, let's say I'm winding down, I want my front door to lock. I want all the lights in the house to turn off. I'll double tap it and it could just happen by one button.
Okay.
So control your house via one button. That's a sell.
And now can this be attached to an app on your phone as well?
The Apple Home app.
Oh, it's on the same thing. Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of people will touch on, so you can get a couple different things. So a smart home is like a gateway drug. So they get the Ring doorbell or the Nest thermostat, anything like that.
I'm already there.
Yeah. So people will get one or two, but they want the full experience. So you can install things yourself. You can try and figure it out. It's going to take you time. It's going to take research. I've been doing this for about 2 years. I've transformed my home. I transformed other people's homes. So I really have that expertise now in knowing what people want and how to get them the end result and just make it simple. So it just works for them. They don't even have to think about like programming things. Like it gets complicated. So if you want to save your own time, you want to save money by not having things that are breaking and not working together in one cohesive ecosystem, like that's why you hire someone like me.
And I think it's important to hire someone like you also because stuff gets installed. And then as we all know, at some point, that app doesn't connect anymore, or there's a little default or something that goes wrong. Or like me, I never update the apps. So eventually it kicks me out to update them. So I think even just things like that, having somebody to consult with or call and say, hey, Chris, one, you don't have to wait on an 800 number for 6.5 hours. They can just call you directly. I think that's a really important factor as well. I mean, that alone is money and time savings.
For sure. Tech Support Central right here.
I love it. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you joining us today.
Darren, always
Thank
a pleasure,
you so much.
sir.
Hey, guys, make sure if you have any questions, reach out to Chris directly. Chris, you want to give me your number?
Sure. So 702-301-6321, orumhometechnology.com, and then you can also reach me at chrisoram.com.
Awesome, guys. And I'm looking forward to this. Like, I'm already thinking of the gift ideas for my clients. I'm like, finally, I figured out something I can give them. So cool. Awesome, guys. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
See you in the next one.